Here's what's coming up on episode 64 of the Big Séance podcast. Rosemary Ellen Guiley.
The question remains open in terms of whether or not we can ever rehabilitate the Ouija board, so to speak, because it's been so thoroughly trashed and demonized by the media, by Hollywood, and by, frankly, people who haven't got a clue what they're talking about. The Jinn are heavily involved in all kinds of interactions with human beings, and they have been throughout history. And we need to know about them because many of them are hostile to human beings, and they are behind a lot of the negative experiences we're having. So the Jinn Connection is one of those books that I will often hear from people that after they read it, they were afraid to sleep in the dark. They had to leave the lights on. But this is why we need education, because when there are pockets of darkness, we do need to shine a light on it. I don't like to hear things like, we don't use psychics, we're just scientific. Well, we're in an era now where science and spirituality are looking for more and more bridges, and quantum physics is demonstrating that the paraphysical and the physical are part of the same continuum of experience. They both have validity. So here again, it is a mistake to shut the door on the paraphysical, on the psychic, in the mistaken notion that it makes you more credible.
Welcome to the Big Séance podcast. I'm Patrick Keller of BigSeance.com, and this is a place for an open discussion on all things paranormal, but specifically topics like ghosts and hauntings, paranormal research, spirit communication, psychics and mediums, and life after death. So basically, anything that pops up in my paranormal world. The candles are already lit, so you might as well come on in and join the séance.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we are interviewing Patrick Keller. Now, we just want to... How old are you, Patrick?
3 years old.
3 years old. Well, that's very nice. Do you have a puppy dog?
Yeah.
What's your puppy's name?
Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse. Now, Patrick, do you know how to sing Don't Fall in Love with a Dreamer?
Yeah.
You do? Well, would you sing a little bit of that song for us?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and you can sing us a little bit.
Okay. Elvira.
Well, wait a minute now, man. We're singing Don't Fall in Love with a Dreamer. Okay? Wait a second. Just look at you. Okay, let's sing. Sitting there. You never look better than tonight. It would be so easy to tell you I'd stay, like I've done so many times. I was so sure this would be the night. You closed the door and want to stay with me, and it would be so easy to tell you I'd stay, like I've done so many times.
No, that's not.
Don't fall in love with a dreamer.
That brief, out-of-the-ordinary interview is brought to you by probably the year 1981 and the cassette to MP3 converter that I purchased this spring. I hope you tolerated that all right. That might give you a little glimpse into where my interview skills came from, actually. And since I teach vocal music, I hope you'll not judge me for that glimpse into my early singing abilities. I did hit a few of those notes accurately, and 3 of them were harmonies, even if they were an accident. My dad was rocking it, though. Oh, nostalgia. If you stick with me to the very end of the episode today, I'll share a few more minutes of that very special interview. And thanks to my dad for allowing me to share it with you, although I didn't give him much choice. So as you know, today's real interview is with the Rosemary Ellen Guiley. And I just want to remind you that in just a few weeks, I'll be attending Troy Taylor's Haunted America Conference in Alton, Illinois. Rosemary will be speaking there and leading some other cool activities that weekend, so I can't wait to meet her. If you haven't already, I want to encourage you to check out episode 59 from April 4th, where I talked to Troy Taylor about his work as well as this summer's conference. And please do let me know if you'll be in attendance. I want to meet you in person. After we talk to Rosemary, I've got some really cool listener feedback this week. And Tim Prossel has a very touching Spectral Edition. See what I did there? Okay, so on with our episode. There are a few seats left over there in the corner, actually, and I'll get the tea poured. Ladies and gentlemen, I have someone I'm very excited about with me here today. I have Rosemary Ellen Guiley. She is a leading expert in the metaphysical and paranormal fields, with more than 60 books published on a wide range of paranormal, spiritual, and mystical topics, including 9 single-volume encyclopedias and reference works. Her work is translated into 15 languages. Her current work focuses on interdimensional entity contact experiences, the afterlife and spirit communications, contact with extraterrestrials, aliens, and non-human intelligent beings, problem hauntings, spirit and entity attachments, psychic skills, dream work for well-being, spiritual growth and development, angels, past and parallel lives, and investigation of unusual paranormal activity. That's quite a challenge to read. She has worked full-time in the field since 1983. Rosemary has done groundbreaking research on shadow people and the Jinn, which we're going to talk about, entities who are involved in different kinds of paranormal encounters and problems, published in the Jinn Connection. There is so much more to this amazing bio, and you should just check it out at visionaryliving.com. Hi, Rosemary.
Hi there, Patrick.
You are such an important personality in the paranormal field. I'm certain that I first learned of you and your work from the Paranormal podcast with Jim Harold, who I've listened to for a long time. And I kind of feel like a podcaster whose content is the paranormal is not a podcaster until they've talked to Rosemary. And so maybe today is the day I become a podcaster.
Well, it's nice to be with you today. And yes, I started with Jim, years and years ago when he first started podcasting. I think I was his third guest.
Oh, yeah. And I was listening. Trust me, it was a big moment in my life when I started getting involved in the paranormal and all of that. And so that was a big part of it. What is your favorite part of being Rosemary Ellen Guiley, the author, speaker, researcher, and all of that?
Patrick, it's hard for me to pick a favorite because I love everything that I do. And I do range from field to field because I work in the paranormal. That's very important to me. The metaphysical field, which is about spiritual growth and development. I have been involved in the UFO field for a very long time, and that side of my work has been increasing lately. And I also look into mysterious creatures, into the cryptid field, and all of these things, including alternative topics, consciousness, and the afterlife studies, all of these related areas have interrelationships. And so at various times I might be focused more on one end of the spectrum than the other, but they're all intensely interesting to me. And it's very hard for me to pick a favorite book. There are some topics that I've done more than one or several. I've done 6 or 7 books on angels. I've done over 60 books, so kind of lose track after a while. But angels has been a very big area for me, dreams, things like ghosts and hauntings, of course. And I also vary my schedule with travel and lecturing, research, writing. And I'm going to be starting my very own radio show on June 1st on the KGRA network, which I'm quite excited about. People have been asking me to do a show for years, and I've had some little temporary things here and there, but finally I found what I think is my ideal home on the airwaves.
That's exciting. I had read about that and forgot all about that. I'm glad you mentioned it. So by my count, you said you had like 60 books. I counted like 11,000. So I can't imagine the time you put into researching just one of them. You kind of talked a little bit about, but shed some light on the process and how you choose a project and what it all involves.
More often than not, projects choose me. And since I'm constantly out with my antenna, out talking to people and keeping up to date with trends and topics, and my research also leads me in certain directions that I feel I have to go deeper into. So it's really the other way around. It's that topics choose me, and then I start working on books. And I do that to fill a perceived need that people are interested in certain things, and it would be good to address that with some information, or areas that haven't been explored very much and I feel are deserving of more attention, because that's where the research leads me. So I am inspiration-driven almost all the time.
Do you have an idea of which of your books is the most popular?
Over the course of time, no, because, some of my early works aren't in print anymore. They've been revised and updated. I can tell you maybe within certain categories which books have been the most popular, but in terms of picking one out over the whole lot, I don't think that would be off the top of my head. My Jinn book, of course, has done very well in the past few years, mainly because nobody else has been writing about the Jinn. My encyclopedias have all done well. Haunted by the Things You Love with John Zaffis, Guide to Psychic Power, Calling Upon Angels, Dream Messages from the Afterlife. Gosh, I don't know. I don't know beyond that.
And that's okay, and that's probably not why you do it, so not a big deal.
Yeah, I probably should pay more attention to my statistics, but I really do books. Like I said, I'm inspiration-driven, and I respond to calls for topics to be explored in more detail. And that's really what motivates me, is the pursuit of truth and knowledge. And, yes, it is important to me how my books do, because that's primarily how I make my living, in addition to speaking and providing various services. But I'm primarily a researcher and investigator, and as soon as one book is out, I'm working on another one. In fact, I work on several books simultaneously, usually in different fields. So I always have something in some stage of beginning, middle, or near completion or completion.
Well, I have read a couple of your books. I very much loved Talking with the Dead, which you wrote with George Norrie, and also Ouija Gone Wild is what actually encouraged me to open my mind to the possibilities of the Ouija. And it eventually led me to a mutual buddy of ours, Karen A. Dahlman. And now I don't think twice about using the Ouija board. And I'd actually love to be a fly on the wall during one of your sessions with Karen. I bet that is a spectacular experience.
It really is. And Karen is a very good friend. I just saw her out in California a few weeks ago. My husband and I had the pleasure of being guests at her home for several days. And, of course, we worked the Ouija board. And it's always a lively, energetic session with Karen. And some very interesting information usually comes through. And, yes, I think that, the Ouija board is much maligned, very unfairly maligned. And, yes, people do have problems with it, I think because it's misused more than anything else. It's not the board's fault. The board is a neutral tool. And speaking of problems with the boards, I have a new book that's debuting called The Zozo Phenomenon, which I've co-authored with Darren Evans. And this goes very much into some of the problem side of the board. And, Darren and I really take a very close look at what happens to people when they have negative experiences, especially with this entity who calls itself Zozo. And why do these things happen? And can they be? How can they be remedied? How can they be prevented? Any psychic tool, any divination tool is a door opener, and it helps you open up your own consciousness to alternate realities. It's a facilitator. A tool is a facilitator. And so the nature and type of experience that you're going to have has more to do with you, the user, than with the device. And this is something that's very hard for many people to understand, especially if they try something and they have a negative experience, or they hear some half-baked demonologist thundering around about how these things are devil's tools and you're going to be possessed and all of this other garbage. And then when the media portrays things like that in just the same way, it's hard for some people to get past that. But it is true that when you encounter the spirit realm, what is going on inside of you in terms of your thoughts, emotions, the state of your consciousness, the level of your vibration, and that's not just metaphysical falderall. There's a lot of science concerning the vibration rate that human beings have and how that affects our health and overall energy field. All of these things combined, as well as the environment and your intention and purpose, other people who are around you, all of these things are going to have an impact on an experience. And one of the things that I hope Ouija Gone Wild, as well as the Zozo phenomenon, accomplish is to get people to understand this, to re-educate people on the nature of spirit contact in general. So it's kind of a daunting task in many ways. The question remains open in terms of whether or not we can ever rehabilitate the Ouija board, so to speak, because it's been so thoroughly trashed and demonized by the media, by Hollywood, and by, frankly, people who haven't got a clue what they're talking about. And those sorts of prejudices are going to continue.
Yeah, I had to tell you, when before your book and before following Karen A. Dahlman and her work, I was definitely in that camp of no Ouija boards, even though I didn't really know much about it. And I don't know if Karen has told you, but after a few years of using the board now off and on, I've had no activity whatsoever. So that's why I can laugh off most of those silly demonic claims that just fly all over the place. But do you have any advice for someone who gets no activity on the Ouija board?
Everybody responds differently to different kinds of tools. And there could be a number of things going on in those cases, Patrick. And I run into this all the time. And it's not surprising when people don't have any results at all. And some of the things involved may be an individual is just too green around the ears, really, in terms of spirit communication. They haven't done it enough yet. It does require a certain attunement of consciousness for these doors to come open in significant ways and easier as you go along. It may not be the right tool either. For example, I've worked with all kinds of tools to experiment with them and see how, they respond to me and are any better for me than others. And yes, there are quite a few differences, and so I have my preferences. So if someone is not getting results at all, it might be a good idea just to switch to something else for a while and see if something then begins to happen. Many times people try these things without having had much experience at all in any of the spiritual arts, and it really takes a while to get it going. If you haven't spent much time pursuing altered states work, meditation, paranormal investigation, or other kinds of contact with the spirit world, it does take a while before you start getting results. So it may just be a question of persistence. And it's also not unusual for people, no matter how well grounded they are and how interested and sincere they are about having positive experiences, to be held back by that little nagging fear inside of you that says, oh my gosh, what if I open the door and I'm not prepared for something or something bad happens? And that can be a holdback too. So sometimes doing a self-inventory check will be very useful. And I often recommend that people just keep at it for a while and to do it in short periods so that you don't become overly frustrated and overly fatigued. And this applies to whether using black mirrors, Ouija boards, pendulums, dowsing rods, ghost boxes, tarot cards, any of the many ways that facilitate this bridge forming between the physical reality and alternate realities.
So I do want to spend a little bit of time later on some spirit communication nerd stuff, but Karen actually told me I could not shy away from this topic, and so here goes a moment of honesty. Your book, The Jinn Connection, has been sitting on my to-be-read shelf for a long time, and so because of this, I have kind of a general ignorance about the topic, I guess. My mind wants to keep things categorized as like simply ghost or not ghost. But after prepping for this interview, I've learned that we may not even be talking about ghosts. So the Jinn, I don't know, intimidates me, I guess. And the skeptical part of me can't wrap my head around it. Well, I did do some poking around in your book, The Jinn Connection, last night. And I'd love to read a 6-sentence passage from your introduction. Would that be okay?
Oh, it sure would.
Okay. So in the introduction, it says, in the course of my 30-year career researching the paranormal, I have striven to be as open-minded as possible, not automatically discarding or discounting ideas because they seemed at first glance far-fetched. I am not given to conspiracies, and I have never been an alarmist. I have had plenty of entity experiences, both positive and negative. I believe in getting out into the field as much as possible, and I do extensive reading and interviewing. In the process of discovery, I have sometimes had to revise my beliefs in the face of evidence. The Jinn are real, and we need to know about them and how they are affecting our world and our pursuit of our own destiny. And that concludes that little segment. So now, Rosemary, you have my attention. So tell me why my little hang-up is silly and why we all need to read this book.
Well, the Jinn are heavily involved in all kinds of interactions with human beings, and they have been throughout history. And we need to know about them because many of them are hostile to human beings, and they are behind a lot of the negative experiences we're having. They're not all negative. We can't describe them in such black and white terms because they're as varied as human beings in their motives and intentions. But it seems that when we encounter them, it's probably going to be more in a negative way than a positive way. And in our culture, they're so below the radar that most people don't even know anything about them. They never really entered our mythology except as the genie in the bottle. And when we don't know about something, we're not likely to be well armored against it. I think that many of our negative experiences are misinterpreted. They're really Jinn experiences, and they're misinterpreted as something else. So I wrote this book to educate people about the Jinn and what they are doing and why we need to be concerned about it and how we can counter some of these negative influences. They're extremely intelligent beings. They share the planet with us. They vibrate at a different rate than we do, and so that puts them in another dimensional reality. But as we know from experiences, doorways between dimensions open in certain circumstances and places, and people can have experiences and encounters. And these beings seem to know how to find these openings and take advantage of them. They can cause some of the same problems that we ascribe to demons. That is, they can haunt a place. They can attach to people and places. They can cause oppression and even possession. And they are involved in all kinds of interactions. I believe that they play significant roles in extraterrestrial encounters, especially the abduction phenomenon, and that they've probably been engaged with human beings throughout history from the standpoint of ancient deities, entities such as the Archons, the Anunnaki, the Nephilim, and the reptilians, and on into modern times in various guises. So the Jinn Connection is one of those books that I will often hear from people that after they read it, they were afraid to sleep in the dark. They had to leave the lights on. But this is why we need education, because when there are pockets of darkness, we do need to shine a light on it. And I've gotten very good feedback on this book now. It's been out since 2012. And I have gotten very good feedback on it from people all over the world, including individuals who are very familiar with the Jinn, very well versed in them. And the name is Arabic. It means the hidden ones. That doesn't mean they're Middle Eastern deities that just hang around in the Middle East and we don't have to worry about them. Entities are everywhere. The entities that share the planet with us are everywhere, regardless of the name they go by. And other cultures, especially from that part of the world, have developed more of a body of knowledge and a mythology about them than we have, but that doesn't limit them to any political border, any race, any ethnic group, or any cultural group. They are everywhere, and they adapt very easily, like chameleons, to whatever time and place in history, time and place and location that they are at.
So when we are following, a paranormal investigation, or say, we're watching one of the popular paranormal shows and things, when they talk about, and we're focused on this ghost idea, when they talk about non-human entities, or maybe when we pin things on demonic, activity, could we be talking about the Jinn there?
It's quite possible, and they're often confused with demons. Sometimes it's very hard to know where one leaves off and the other begins, or even if one is a shape-shifted form of the other. If so, I suspect that it's Jinn shape-shifting into demons and not vice versa, because I think the Jinn have been one of the major players from the very get-go of human history. And they can create negative hauntings. They can take the forms of mysterious creatures. They can mimic ghosts of the dead. And one of their most favored forms, it seems, is the shadow person. And shadow people are, in my estimation, the most common paranormal experience shared by people all over the planet. It's not ghosts. It's not residues, not demons or ETs. It's shadow people. And there may be more than one explanation for shadow people. I'm certainly open to that. But I came to the conclusion years ago, after studying shadow people in some depth, that they are a form taken by Jinn. And it's one of their favorite kinds of forms because it's a way of terrifying people. And that's one of the things that they prefer to do.
When I first started following you several years ago, I found some great videos online of you demonstrating spirit boxes and Frank's boxes. And that led to, me just like every other tool that I've gotten. I went out and purchased these tools. What are some of your favorite spirit communication tools and techniques? I know you've been into Black Mirror scrying, like you just said a little while ago. What are some of your favorites?
Over the course of my investigations and research, I have different tools that I like to use in different settings. And on paranormal investigations, I've always appreciated using a ghost box, even though sometimes they don't work very well since they rely on radio signals to create the scan jumble if you're in a very remote area that where the box can't pick up much in the way of radio, it's not going to have the variety to generate a really good scan. So it does have its limitations. But I, for a long time, have been fascinated by the real-time two-way exchanges that are possible on a ghost box. And hearing an unexplained voice is a very fascinating experience. I like the Black Mirror. That's another one of my favorite tools for entirely different reasons. And Black Mirrors go very deep, can take you very deep into the astral realm. And they're very good for improving your clairvoyance and your clairaudient abilities and psychic abilities in general. So they generate an entirely different kind of experience, which for most people is an interior experience as opposed to an exterior kind of experience from the ghost box. And even though phenomena can manifest in an environment in the space around you as a sort of an epiphenomena kind of thing related to the Black Mirror, it's still primarily an interior kind of experience. And the tarot has been one of my favorite tools since I was a teenager. When I first learned the tarot, it's a very good way for eliciting psychic information. I've always used tarot decks and readings, and it too can help a person hone skill in the psychic faculty. And the tarot also excels in opening the doorway to the archetypal realm, and as well as the astral plane, and is a very good tool for spiritual refinement and exploration. So every tool offers its own kind of high points and particular things that it can deliver. If I'm out on investigations, I also like to use dowsing rods. I prefer rods to pendulums because what I use the rods for are dowsing the energy lines and property that seems to be very active. And I think those are exceptional tools for doing that. So that kind of gives you an idea of what I'm most likely to use. And then the best and biggest instrument of all is the human being. And this is something that is often overlooked in paranormal investigation. They rush to load up with equipment and, be like the reality shows, places kind of too much emphasis on devices to deliver information as opposed to the human being. And, of course, we need the devices to collect hard evidence. You want the photograph, you want the recording, you want the video. And those are all important. But too much equipment actually detracts from a person's ability to tune in psychically to an environment. And in any given situation in an investigation, most of the phenomena are going to be perceived subjectively and individually, sometimes shared by more than one person, and they're not going to register on equipment. So I've always advocated a balance between hard tech and what I call low tech or soft tech. That is, people who are very serious about investigating really are well advised to take the time to develop their own psychic sensitivity. And whenever I hear somebody say, I'm not psychic, it's just simply not true. Everybody is psychic. We're born that way. And some people have very marked natural abilities, and others need to encourage them, and need to kind of train it out. And we can all improve our skill. And, of course, the more you do in paranormal investigation, the more likely that's going to happen anyway. And I don't like to hear things like, we don't use psychics, we're just scientific. Mm-hmm. Well, we're in an era now where science and spirituality are looking for more and more bridges. And quantum physics is demonstrating that the paraphysical and the physical are part of the same continuum of experience. They both have validity. So here again, it is a mistake to shut the door on the paraphysical, on the psychic, in the mistaken notion that it makes you more credible. You're going to get very little evidence if you, just rely on one end of the spectrum. And I'm happy to see a lot of shifts in the community in that regard. When I shop talk with investigators, I'm finding more and more of them are at least open to that, if not going more in that direction. And it shouldn't be one or the other. It needs to be a good balance of both.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of paranormal investigation when I was more involved was just sitting in the location and being in the moment and just sitting there and listening and experiencing each room. And I think you're right. I think that you stop paying attention when you're worried about all the toys, which I think we've all been guilty of.
Well, we all have, and I don't think that I've ever loaded myself down as much as some of the groups, but I certainly, for a period of time, approached paranormal investigation more from the standpoint of equipment than from the psychic realm. And these days, if I'm more one than the other, I'm more on the psychic end of things. And I think that it's, first of all, if you're going to do an effective job of investigation, especially if you're involved in helping people with problematic situations, you do need to be finely attuned to the environment that you're investigating. And if there are intelligent entities or beings present, then most of them are not going to show up as EVP or even on your camera, but you might have a perception of them and maybe even some sort of telepathic connection with them. All of these things operate on telepathy, the mass amount of communications. Now, in relation to this, and this is getting off the primarily paranormal thing, but for the past year and a half, I've been very involved with an organization called the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, and we have been doing some global research on the experiencer phenomenon. And even though we've got the name extraterrestrial in our name, we are looking at all kinds of experiences across the board, because people don't have just one kind of experience. Most people throughout their lives are going to have a variety of experiences. And there are commonalities shared among all kinds of experiences. And almost, to a person, when people report contact with intelligent presences, the communication is telepathic and not registering on equipment. A lot of these experiences are spontaneous, however. They're not within the setup of an organized paranormal investigation. So I have been talking for years now about the expansion of consciousness that human beings are participating, and we're already participating in it, and that will be more and more required of us in order to advance into the future, where reality is going to be very different than it is now. And these encounters and experiences are not going to be the extraordinary, they will be the ordinary. And work that's being done now in the paranormal and UFO fields is very important, because it's giving people a lot of information about the kinds of experiences they're having, the conditions, what's going on, and it's also very validating for people in terms of individuals who haven't talked about their experiences, then being encouraged to come forward with theirs.
I think that's great. I've always thought that the personal experience should be valued more and not just thrown out if it doesn't, just because it can't be measured on a tool. Like you just said, I think they should all be documented.
Well, and the more we document them, the more we discover patterns and experiences among disparate groups of people. For example, the research that we've collected globally from 63 countries, it's an unprecedented amount of data with the most detail ever applied to any study of experiencers. And yet there are definable patterns. And from my standpoint, I'm on the board of directors and the research committee of FREE. From my standpoint, it's been validating for my own work, because on a smaller scale, over the 30-plus years that I've been researching, I have identified patterns of experiences, patterns of phenomena, patterns of behavior, and certain kinds of encounters with entities. And to see that then also validated on a much larger scale by people around the planet who don't even know each other and know anything about each other's experiences is very eye-opening. And I think it's valuable for other researchers to know and to take into account. And by the way, Patrick, if you don't mind my mentioning, I would like to say that all of our research from free is available free of charge on our website, which is www.experiencer.org. Any researcher, any person curious, you can get the preliminary results of our global study. Over 2,700 people from around the world. There's 600 questions that we pose to everyone, and all of it's been statistically analyzed. And it does cover a lot more than just ETs. We ask about spirituality, about ghosts, angels, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, beliefs about reincarnation and past lives, what the aliens want to tell us, what they're doing with us, are the experiences positive or negative? And by the way, most people say their experiences are positive.
I will absolutely check that out, and I'll put that in the show notes for people to check out as well. This summer, I'm so excited to be attending an event where Rosemary is going to be speaking, and that is Troy Taylor's Haunted America Conference in Alton, Illinois. And by this point, it's just weeks away, and I'm so excited about it. It's on June 24th and June 25th in Alton, and you could check out AmericanSpookShows.com for more information, and I'll throw that link in the show notes as well. And you'll be talking about the Jinn and your Black Mirror scrying, and what else is going to be going on there? I'm so excited.
I have a workshop on psychic protection. For the past several years, I have done Black Mirror workshops after hours. They've been very, very popular. I've been thrilled to introduce people to the Black Mirror, and Troy's conference is one of the perfect places to do it. We always have a nice room that we can set up with a lot of atmosphere, a lot of candles, and dim light, and good music to take you into a good altered state. And I gave a talk some years ago on the Jinn when my research was first coming out. And Troy and I felt it was time for an update because I've done continuing research. In fact, I have collected material for yet another book on them. So I'll be giving an update on what are some of the new trends, the new things that I've been discovering about that, and how they're relating to everything else. Troy's conference is one of the best in the field. I've known Troy since the 1980s, and I've participated in I don't know how many of his events, and they are consistently the best of the best. He draws an excellent crowd of information seekers. He always has a good slate of speakers. Everybody has a good time, and I look forward to it every year.
I am so nerding out and super excited to see people and learn and network. I think it'll be really, really cool. Well, now I'm going to take you to the most important question of this interview. We are very pro nerd here, Rosemary. And I want to know, outside of the paranormal or anything we would assume about you, what kind of nerd are you?
Oh, what kind of nerd am I? I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. I don't even know what a nerd supposedly is in that context.
Well, that's because you're busy researching serious things and not goofy things. Some people choose to use the term geek. Does that help, or is it the same thing?
Oh, I'm definitely not a geek. My husband's a geek, and I rely on him. I rely on him to be the geek.
Well, there you go. I guess I'll let you off, and maybe there are some non-nerds out there. You know what? This has been such an honor. Are there any future projects and things coming up that we haven't sufficiently covered? And where can people contact you and find your stuff and all that?
My website is visionaryliving.com, And I also have a website on the Jinn. It's called JinnUniverse.com, DJINN universe.com. If you don't know much about the Jinn, want to learn more about them, it's a great place to start. I have a chat board of posts and comments from people all over the world, thousands of posts, people talking about their experiences and how they've dealt with them. It's a real eye-opener. And yes, I always have multiple books in the works. And beyond the Zozo book, later on this summer in August, my second book with John Zaffis will be out, called Demon Haunted, True Stories from the John Zaffis Vault. And some of the stories will be more of John's haunted objects. We're dealing with some other kinds of cases as well, like haunted land. And that's highly anticipated, along with the Zozo phenomenon. And at Halloween, then, I have a book co-authored with Al Kelchner, who has been living on an intensely haunted farmette, a very small farm in Illinois. And it's called Haunted Willow Creek Farm, about his experiences there. That's a very interesting story because it's not just a typical haunted story. It has kind of a twist to it, and won't spoil it more than that right now. And I'm also working on various projects with Free, on a documentary film, on a book on the experiencer phenomenon. And I am an independent publisher as well. I have a publishing house, and I publish the works of other authors. So I have projects there. I have a book by a phenomenal medium, Carl Petrie, coming out this summer, and some other projects in the works as well.
Well, I'm so excited about the one you mentioned coming out in the fall about the farm. I think that's interesting. And I think you've also finally convinced me to read The Jinn Connection. I have it right here. So I'm going to do that, and that'll be my homework, and I'll get back with you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. You rock. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Patrick. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
You're listening to the Big Séance Podcast with Patrick Keller. Look for us on iTunes and be sure to check out BigSeance.com for more discussion.
A few days ago, I got a very nice email from a new listener. He's been making his way through the archive of previous episodes, and he's been in touch with me as he goes along. His name is Paul Ibarra. That's Ybarra. And I had to tell you, he's an amazing singer and artist. You should check him out. I'll throw a link in the show notes. Anyway, I wanted to read his email. He says, "Hi, Patrick. I just discovered your podcast less than a week ago, and I'm hooked. Absolutely hooked. Your easygoing manner is wonderful for a host, and your genuine excitement at the guests you have on and the topics you cover keep it such a fun and exciting event to listen to. I'm only on episode number 9. I think it's the second time you had Marilyn Painter on, and can't get enough. It is so refreshing, truly, to hear someone who enjoys what they're doing and what they're talking about. And I love how you keep the questions engaging and funny, and you also give the guest plenty of room to move and answer back. I've heard a few haunted podcasts where the guests couldn't get a word in with the host who kept the entire episode focused and on his comebacks with snarky comments and being radio funny. Patrick, you're the real deal. Your humility and respect for your guest's time is impressive. You have a natural charisma in your voice, and that makes it seem like we're in on the conversation too. I have saved a few of the podcasts I've already heard just to hear again. They are so good and so darn funny. So far, my favorites have been with Marilyn Painter and Karen Dahlman. I just wanted to tell you to keep up the excellent work and know how much your work is truly appreciated. I've subscribed to your podcast already and to your YouTube channel, thanks to Karen Dahlman for sharing the link. Can't wait to hear more. You rock, Paul. Thank you. I also recently got some voice feedback.
Hello, this is Ken Mo. Just saying that I enjoyed listening to The Big Séance podcast. My first time on a laptop computer. Ken Mo. You can find me at Cajun Mystic. Thank you.
I don't receive voice feedback often, so I was really excited when this came in. As you heard, that was a gentleman named Ken Mo, and his site is CajunMystic.com. I'm going to spend some time checking out your work, Ken. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us for the Big Séance podcast. We'd better get back to the table while there's still some candlelight left.
Welcome to Spectral Edition. I'm Tim Prossel. You know, when you think of the supernatural monsters that are out there, at least in the pages of fiction, you get vampires that want to drink your blood, or zombies that want to eat your brains, or werewolves that just want to hurt you. And then you have ghosts. And they seem relatively nice. Maybe not nice, but certainly not as dangerous as other supernatural entities. And yet, one thing that ghosts have going for them, they're creepy. Especially if they can touch you. Which is just something that chills me more than anything else, I think, about ghosts. And I've got a couple of articles here that deal with exactly that, ghosts that touch the living. The first one is from the Evening Star, which was a newspaper in Washington, D.C., and it was published on March 11th, 1887. The headline is Disagreeable Texas Ghosts. They come around and put their hands on the faces of sleeping people. Dallas, Texas, March 11th. The second ward of Dallas is in a ferment of feverish excitement over a haunted house. The inmates of the house have moved out, unable longer to withstand the terrorizing feeling of cold hands nightly placed on their faces. The experience is of a most blood-curdling nature. The neighbors were called on to watch the manifestations of ghosts and were stampeded and cannot now be prevailed on to re-enter the house. The sensational feature of the unearthly manifestations will be developed when a party of men explore the house at night and make their report. As far as I know, that report was never made. Or at least I could never find it. There's another article. It was published in the Iron County Register, a newspaper from Missouri, and it's published on June 18th of 1891. The headline is Paralyzed by a Ghost. Mr. and Mrs. Michael Shea of St. Joseph are having a series of strange experiences with a ghost. The other night, so the story goes, Mrs. Shea was awakened by a sense of suffocation. The night was very dark, but her eyes could distinguish an apparition standing by her bedside. She tried to scream, but could not. The ghost laid its cold, clammy hands upon her arm and then disappeared. The next morning, to her surprise, she could not raise her arm, the one the ghost had touched, from her side. It was as if paralyzed. That night, Mr. Shea was awakened by a cold hand being laid on his forehead. He awoke with a start and noticed the strange phantom standing by his side. Mr. Shea was speechless with fright. The ghost continued to rub its icy hands upon the head of Mr. Shea and finally touched him on both arms and disappeared. Great beads of perspiration stood out on the forehead of Mr. Shea. He tried to speak to his wife, but could make no sound. He thought how his wife had been affected and tried to raise his arms. To his horror, he could not do so. The next morning, his arms were still paralyzed, and he ceased to laugh at his wife, nor was he able to work that day. The ghost appeared to both husband and wife again the following night. And there the article ends. Again, no follow-up story. I'm Tim Prossel, and I have close to 300 of these ghost reports, all published in U.S. newspapers between the years of 1865 and 1918. I post one each Wednesday on my website. The website is called The Merry Ghost Hunter. I hope you stop by.
Have you been voting daily for Big Séance Podcast at podcastawards.com? I know many of you have been, and you've been sharing the link with others as well. And I'll put that link in the show notes. You know, Joey from Cocktails and Cream Puffs has kind of challenged me to come up with creative ways of reminding folks to help us out. So look forward to some of that on social media. We only have to bug you for 10 more days. But we might just have a chance at this. Come on, you know you're excited. Thanks, Paranerds. For show notes, including links to anything we may have mentioned in this episode, visit BigSeance.com. Just click on the Big Seance podcast logo or find it in the menu. You can also find and subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and we've just been added to the Google Play Music Store. Do you have any comments or feedback? Go to bigseance.com/feedback to learn how to get your voice in a future show. Or you can call my feedback line at 7755-TELL-ME. That's 775-583-5563. Interested in learning how to promote and share the podcast? Go to bigseance.com/share. Thank you so much for listening. Unfortunately, it's time to blow the candles out, but we'll see you and light them again next time.
Patrick, do you work during the day? Like, do you work at General Motors, or do you work in a store somewhere, or do you babysit kids, or what do you work at?
Store.
You work at a store? How much money do you make?
$3.
$3? Well, now let me ask you another question. Have you got your income tax ready yet?
Yeah.
You have? Well, how much money do you get back from income tax?
$3 again.
$3 again?
I gotta fix the hole because my dog won't get in the hole.
Fix a hole so your dog won't get out that hole?
Nope.
Oh, well, is that your dog barking now? Well, did you...
Screaming.
Screaming? Did your mommy get you that dog? Well, let me ask you this.
No, my daddy.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a daddy.
No, you don't have no daddies either? Okay. Let me ask you this. Who
I have
cleans...
daddy and mommy now.
Oh, okay. Who cleans up that dog's messes?
Me?
Me?
Yeah.
Does mommy clean up the dog's messes?
Yeah.
Yes. Just a minute. Now, let's get this straight. Now, this is...
The eye basket practice basketball.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let's get this straight for the record. Does mommy clean up any of the dog's messes?
Yeah.
Now, listen. Let's get this straight. Let's answer these questions right now. Does mommy clean up the dog's messes?
Yeah.
Now, listen, Patrick. You're on the road. You got to answer these questions truthfully and correctly to the best of your knowledge. Okay? Now, does mommy clean up any of the dog's poop?
Yep.
Oh my God.
And we got flowers.
Flowers.
And pretty.
Pretty flowers, huh?
And you forgot to see my tape recorder.
I see your tape recorder. Well, Patrick, this has been such a wonderful interview with you, but I'm going to ask you one more question. And this is all we have time for before we have to go in and eat another delicious meal that your mother has prepared for us.
We'll have to do another table.
Well, we might, but this is your last question. Now, do you think you can answer this one right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you say your ABCs for me?
Yeah.
Okay, say them for me.
Okay. Now, we're for structure time.
Okay, hurry up. Hurry up, we're running out of tape. This is costing us big bucks.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y&D. No one know my eyes. Tell me what you think of me.
Oh, well, that's very nice, Patrick. Can you count to 12, too?
I don't know.
Count to 12.
12.
Ha ha, very funny, you little smarty pants. Now, count 1, 2, 3, 4 like that to 12.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Well, that's very nice. Now, I've got one more question to ask you. Then we've got to wrap this session up. And we'll come back here next week at our regular time. Just 1 minute. I'm having a problem here asking questions because I can't hardly see the cue cards in there. So let's stop for a minute and see what we sound like. Would that be all right?
Yeah.
Okay.